Game of Thrones. Game of Thrones is what we call medievalism. It isn't set in the Middle Ages, but it is using medieval weapons, medieval armor, medieval tendencies. Jon's brother is running away from Ramsay Bolton, who's going to shoot arrows at him. Big mistake he makes is runs in a straight line. Don't run in a straight line if you're being shot at with bow. The technique here is good. The bow is weird, how exactly this bow is made, but it is a long bow of sorts, and he is pulling it back as far as he can, and he gets quite a great distance on it. The swords themselves are pretty accurate. These are hand-and-a-half swords, which is the most common sword in the Middle Ages. That's not their term, that's ours. But that meant that it could be used with one or two hands, and we often see the sword being wielded by Jon or by anybody else with one or two hands. The other thing I like about this is Ramsay has a dagger. Now, it's not the way a medieval knight would have worn it. He would have worn it down the left thigh, but he does have a dagger, and you can see how sharp and long it is, because that's the death-dealing weapon in the Middle Ages. A lot of scenes in medieval battles never show what is probably one of the worst things on the battlefield, which is thirst. Medieval battles were often very short, but if it went on for very long, the aspect of thirst and fatigue took over so much. We have scenes in medieval chronicles where the soldiers are sucking the hilts of their swords to get the little bit of moisture out of the leather in order to keep going, in order to not to die of thirst.
There's the one famous problem that we have is Jon Snow's jumping up onto his horse, and he's got a floppy sword, right? There's a lot of talk about this on the internet. People were going, oh look, they forgot to put the sword into his scabbard. But that's not true, because if you look at the clip, you can actually see the grip of the sword and the crossbar of the hilt at the top of the scabbard, and yet the scabbard is flapping around like there's nothing in it. There's a perfectly logical explanation for this. The reason that it flops around like there's no blade inside is because there's no blade inside,
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
This would have been a stunt rig that has a handle as if there's a sword in the scabbard, but there's no blade attached to that handle, and there's several different reasons why that may have occurred. Later on in the scene, his horse stumbles and he kind of does one of these hero moment somersaults right off of the horse. That would have been a very difficult, if not downright dangerous thing for the actor or stunt person to do. And normally when you have big scenes like this, the filmmaker will always want to do one or two what we call master shots, where it's big wide shot from start to finish. And so there was no room to cut in between him hopping on the horse and him falling off the horse to change out that stunt blade. So it's more a safety issue. It's not an issue of neglect. It wasn't like the prop crew forgot about putting, this is Jon Snow. Longclaw is his sword. It's made of Valyrian steel. It doesn't flop around like that. But in this particular case, the safety overruled what they were doing as far as the prop itself.